Good morning, everyone. I'm truly honored to have been invited by Reverend White, Dana, and Cantor to share my perspective about race and faith. And I understand I have a unique perspective, and some will say a platform as a result of my involvement caring for some of the officers that were ambushed last July here in Dallas, and some of the things I said afterwards. Now, I've never really thought about how race and faith intersected in my personal life, but as I thought about what I was going to say today, it became very clear that these have been interwoven since I was a child. You know, the racism, the microaggressions, those are very easy for me to define, and I can give you a multitude of examples that continue to this day. My first memory of one is when I was 4 years old, maybe 5, and I'm outside and I approach a young white boy who's about my age to see if he wants to play, and then his mother hurries over and shuffles him away pretty quickly. Now, I recognize that this is something unusual about this interaction, but I don't have the capacity to really process this. But my mother explains to me, she says, "Brian, this is a young white boy, and his mother does not want him to play with you because you're black." So this is an important lesson I'm being taught about my place in this society, which is that you, little black boy, are inferior. And this is at an age where I'm too young to even really understand that it's happening, cannot process this. But researchers know that this actually impacts the psychological development of children and adolescents of color. And this is a repetitive occurrence throughout my life. Most recently, one of the really big events occurred about 4 or 5 years ago when I'm standing at the entrance of the garage to my high-rise apartment complex in Uptown. I have my luggage on the ground waiting for my ride to the airport. And Dallas PD pulled up in front of me. 2 officers get out and approach me. And they ask me, what are you doing here? And I say, "I'm waiting for my ride to the airport. Here's my luggage on the ground." "Well, why are you doing it here?" I tell them, "I live here." And incredulous, they say, "You live here? May we please see some identification?" So what do you do in that situation? What's going through your mind? Because in my mind, I'm already running the tape of everything that can go wrong. Being beaten, restrained, shot and killed. So I do what I've been taught to do since I was a young boy. I speak very respectfully to the officers. I reach slowly in my back pocket, pull out my wallet, give them my identification. They run my information and let me go. On that 25-minute ride to the airport, I remember being angry. I was seething with anger. Because think about this, at this point in my life, this is 4 or 5 years ago. I'm 47 now, so I'm early 40s. I'd done everything this society asked me to do. I went to college, served my country. I'm a doctor, commit myself to a profession that gives back to humanity. And that did not matter. Because to some, I will always be viewed as suspicious, or a threat, or guilty, or inferior. And this all came to bear last summer after the shootings here in Dallas. But before I get to that, how does this intersect with my faith? Because I grew up going to Sunday school, going to church. There became a time in my early teens where I began to wonder, was this really for me? Because I had been continuously bombarded with images of God as this white male authority figure. And Jesus is white. And Noah is white. And everybody that matters is white. And I asked myself, where do I fit into this narrative? Where does someone like me matter? And as I decided that I didn't, therefore, why should I spend an hour every Sunday at church? And I stopped going, much to my mother's dismay. And it remained that way for decades. Then I learned about Unitarianism. Actually, my wife taught me about Unitarianism. She's in the background in a lot of these things. You know, she will describe herself as a supportive spouse. I'll describe her as a directive spouse. But she taught me about Unitarianism. I'm like, okay, I get that. You know, this message of inclusivity, that mattered to me. And we used to live in Boston, so we had to go to the Arlington Street Church. And I mean, there's a lesbian minister? Like, this is not possible. Like, this is the place for me. They're preaching the values that matter to me. They embody this. They're walking the walk, talking the talk. But even then, I still, as a person of color, felt on the fringe of the religion. And you can look out now and you understand why. I've sat here and listened to sermons about the epigenetics of racism and Martin Luther King's ceremony and multiple sermons about race. And I've sat out there crying. These guys make me cry all the time. And still didn't feel like I was really completely embraced. Is it maybe my problem? Is it the congregation? Who knows? It's just an observation, not a criticism. That is the reality of my existence in Unitarianism. But I recognize how important this is in my life. And it became very, very evident last summer. Because up until then, I'd been dipping my toes in the water for the past 4 or 5 years. We'd come to church, then stop coming, then come back. Then probably about a year and a half before the events last summer, we began coming regularly. And I actually felt that if I didn't come, I'd missed out. I would watch the sermons on YouTube afterwards, and I really felt like I had to do my homework. And I realize now that I was being prepared for some major transformation in my life. And I also was at the point where I was really beginning to question my identity as a person. My identity as a black man in this society that doesn't seem to care about me. My identity as a trauma surgeon who routinely sees the end result of gun violence against people that look like me and talking to their families that could be my families. And my identity as a husband and a father. I'm looking at all the things I could be doing better and asking myself, what are you going to do? And then on July 5th, I see this video of Alton Sterling restrained, shot point blank on the ground. And on July 6th, I see this video of Philando Castile bleeding out in his front seat of his car that he had been shot. And I'm thinking to myself, when is this going to end? And what am I going to do about it? Then July 7th comes. And this is my day off. I'm not supposed to be working this day. My partner asked me to take his shift, and I said, sure, I will do this for you. And I go into work having no expectation that all these things are about to intersect with my life. But you know what happened. You have an African-American male sniper who is targeting white police officers. There is a peaceful rally protesting police brutality downtown. And then I'm working at Parkland Hospital, and we have 12 surgeons. It's my night off, and I'm the only black surgeon in this group. And now I'm here. 7 of those officers come to us, 3 fatally. And afterwards, I really could not conceptualize why this was continuing, this escalating of violence, this race, police brutality. And what am I going to do about this? And a few days later, that's when things really changed. There's this press conference that they're having, nationally televised press conference. Has anybody seen this conference or video of it? So even to this day, I have not watched this press conference or any footage of it because it is too emotional for me to go back there. In fact, that day I didn't even want to go there. I told them I wouldn't do it. My wife convinced me to show up. And even then, I was told, well, you can sit there, but you're not going to speak, which was fine by me. At some point, I hear the discussion going on, and we're not addressing what I think is a critical issue, which is race and violence and how it's escalating. And I realize at this point, well, if you see the video, you see the camera looking at us, and there's like 5 of us sitting at a table. So I turn this around for you. What I'm looking at is a room about like this, and there's probably the first 8 or 9 pews worth of people. And this is press. CBS, CNN, Fox, the BBC, papers, New York Times, Washington Post, Dallas Morning News. They're all there, sitting there watching this. And I'm thinking, something has to be said. And if not now, it's never going to happen. And I knew, once I opened my mouth, I knew I was going to get fired. I mean, you know that feeling you're going to get fired? And I don't mean because you're about to tell your boss to stick it, which I have thought about many times, but you're about to step into a conversation that no one wants to have, much less your management, and you're about to do it on live TV. But I did. And things changed from that point on. It was as if God had put this nice little package together for me. Here are all these things, Brian, that you're struggling with. Now let me make it even worse for you and drop it at your feet. And what are you going to do? And I'm like, you know what? I have enough going on right now with my family. I do not need this as well. But I recognize that I'm being prepared for that journey. Which brings me back to the church. Had I not been coming to the church and meeting with these people and hearing these sermons, I don't know how I would have handled that. And it is still a struggle to this day. But this church is very important for my recovery. And the message of inclusivity is something that's really important to me. And although I feel on the fringe, I mean, last week, the youth service, that really solidified a lot for me. I was so impressed by these kids. Like, I was never that mature and thoughtful at that age. And I'm thinking to myself, we have to stay in this church. I want my daughter to be like that when she gets older. And the message of one of the kids, I call them kids, there's so much, that diminishes what they really are. But Kemper talked about inclusivity. And the message resonated with me because he talked about showing compassion and grace and empathy towards people who may not deserve it, will not give it back. And I will tell you, a black man, that is a daily struggle for me. But I realize that I have to show love to people that will never think to give it back to me. people I really think do not deserve it. And I'm trying hard to really accept that people are doing the best that they can. But that's part of my journey. And that's why the church is important to me in my life. I cannot disentangle the issues of race and faith. But the message, the mission, most importantly, the action is what keeps me coming here every Sunday. Makes me feel like I've missed something when I'm not here. So thank you for welcoming me, and thank you for allowing me to speak with you this morning.